James had never expected to find anything extraordinary on this alien planet. He was just a part of a human diplomatic mission, assigned to establish peaceful relations with a distant world. But as he stepped off the transport ship and onto the soft, glowing soil of this strange new world, something felt different. He couldn't explain it, but the air here seemed alive, filled with energy and mystery. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the lush green fields. Strange, shimmering plants waved gently in the breeze, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of flowers he couldn't name. It was a place untouched by human hands, wild and full of life. James had been assigned to speak with the locals about the possibilities of trade, but as he walked through the fields toward the alien village, his mind wandered. He had always dreamed of visiting places like this to see new worlds and experience different ways of life. But now that he was here, he realized that no training could prepare him for the reality of meeting beings so different from himself. As he entered the village, he was greeted by curious glances. The inhabitants were tall, with skin that shimmered like stardust, their eyes large and bright, reflecting the colors of the world around them. They were peaceful people known for their calm and serene nature. But something about them made James feel small, almost insignificant. They seemed to radiate a wisdom he could not begin to understand. It was then that he saw her. She stood near a small pool of water, her long silver hair flowing like a river behind her. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, and her eyes seemed to hold an entire galaxy within them. She was unlike anyone James had ever seen. Her presence was like a calming breeze on a hot day, soothing and gentle. James hesitated, unsure of whether he should approach. The alien woman had not noticed him, lost in thought, as she stared at the water. But something drew him to her. He took a step forward, then another, until he was standing at the edge of the pool. She turned, her eyes meeting his. For a moment neither of them spoke. James could feel his heart racing, unsure of what to say or how to act in the presence of such a beautiful and mysterious being. "I didn't expect a human to be here," she said softly, her voice like music. Her words were in perfect English, though James could tell they were not her first language. James blinked, surprised. "I wasn't expecting to be here either," he replied, a small laugh escaping his lips. The woman smiled, and for a moment, the world seemed to slow down. "I'm Ziria," she said, extending her hand. "And you are?" "James," he answered, shaking her hand. Her touch was cool but comforting, and he felt a strange warmth spread through him. "James," she repeated, as if tasting the sound of his name. "What brings you to our world?" Zelling strangely vulnerable. Ziria studied him for a moment, as if weighing his words. Then she surprised him once again. "You've come a long way," she said, her voice filled with understanding. "Maybe you need something more than just a mission." James raised an eyebrow, confused. "What do you mean?" Ziria's gaze softened, and she stepped back, her silver hair catching the light. "I'm offering you something, James. A day with me. No mission. No responsibilities. Just a chance to experience something beyond your world, beyond your duties." James' heart skipped a beat. A day with her? The idea seemed impossible. But at that moment it felt like the only thing that mattered. "You want me to come with you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Ziria nodded. "I want you to see the world through my eyes. I want you to experience it as I do." James swallowed hard, his mind racing. A day with her. A chance to leave everything behind, if only for a moment. "I'd give everything for just one day with you," he said, his words almost escaping before he realized what he was saying. Ziria's smile widened, and for the first time James saw something truly extraordinary in her eyes, a deep, unspoken understanding. "Then come with me, James. Come with me and let me show you a world beyond your own." And just like that, his life changed forever. James followed Ziria as she led him through the lush landscape of her world. The air was thick with the sweet scent of flowers, and the ground beneath his boots felt soft, almost as if the earth itself were alive. The landscape was unlike anything he had ever seen. Rolling hills dotted with strange, bioluminescent plants that shimmered in the fading light. A river ran through the valley, its waters sparkling in the twilight like liquid silver. Ziria moved effortlessly through the terrain, her long silver hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. She glanced over her shoulder to make sure James was following, and her smile was warm and inviting. She had a way of making everything seem effortless, as if the world itself bent to her will. "You're quiet," Ziria said, breaking the silence between them. Her voice was soft but full of curiosity. "Are you thinking?" James nodded, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar surroundings. "Yeah, I'm just trying to take it all in. I've never seen a world like this before. It's beautiful." Ziria agreed, her eyes shining as she looked around. "But it's more than just beauty. It's life. It's energy. Everything here is connected. It's something my people understand, but it's difficult for outsiders to grasp." James couldn't help but be fascinated. He had always known that there were other worlds out there, but seeing this one in person made him realize just how vast and mysterious the universe was. The alien creatures, the plants, the very air, it all felt so alive. He felt like an outsider, but Ziria's presence made him feel as though he belonged. As they walked, the scenery shifted. The fields gave way to dense forests, their towering trees stretching high into the sky, their trunks thick and covered in strange glowing vines. James marveled at the beauty of it all, but he couldn't help but wonder about the people who lived. Here Ziria had mentioned her people, but she hadn't said much else. "So, where exactly are we going?" James asked, eager to learn more. Ziria smiled but didn't answer right away. She seemed lost in thought, as though deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke. "We're going to my home," she said simply. "It's not far, but it's a place that not many outsiders see. My people live in harmony with the land, and we don't often invite strangers in. But I trust you." James felt a rush of emotion at her words. Trust. He had never thought of himself as someone worthy of that kind of faith, especially from an alien species so different from his own. But Ziria had seen something in him, something he still didn't fully understand. It was a strange feeling, but it warmed him from the inside. As they walked, they entered the forest, canopy above them blocking out most of the sunlight. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of distant birds echoed through the trees. Ziria led him deeper into the woods, her pace steady and confident. James followed, trying to keep up with her long strides. Eventually, they came to a clearing, and James stopped in his tracks. In front of them was a massive tree, its trunk thick and covered in smooth silver bark. The tree seemed to hum with energy, and its branches reached out like arms, as if welcoming them. The ground around it was covered in soft moss, and small flowers glowed faintly in the dim light. "This is it," Ziria said, her voice filled with pride. "This is my home." James was speechless. The tree was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was ancient, yet full of life, its branches alive with movement, as if it were aware of their presence. He couldn't help but reach out and touch the trunk, feeling a faint vibration beneath his fingertips. It was as if the tree was alive, breathing along with him. Ziria watched him closely, a soft smile on her lips. "It's not just a home," she explained. "It's where my people find our strength. We live with the land in harmony with it. Our connection to nature is everything." James took a deep breath, trying to process everything she had just said. He had never been someone who believed in such deep connections to the earth, but something about Ziria's words made him want to believe it. The way she spoke about her world, the reverence in her voice, it was clear that this was not just a place to her. It was part of her very being. "Are your people like this?" James asked, looking around at the peaceful surroundings. Ziria nodded. "Yes, we live in balance with everything around us. We take only what we need and give back when we can. It's a way of life that has lasted for generations." James was struck by how different this world was from his own. On Earth, people had always taken more than they needed, consumed resources without thinking of the consequences. But here, in this alien world, everything seemed different. The people lived in harmony with nature, respecting it, nurturing it. It was a way of life that seemed almost perfect. "Are there many like you?" James asked, his curiosity growing. Ziria turned to him, her expression serious. There are many like me, but not all understand our way of life. Some have forgotten the old ways, seeking power or resources, but we remain true to the land. We always will. James felt a deep sense of respect for her and her people. He had heard stories about alien civilizations, about their power and technology, but nothing could compare to the quiet strength he saw in Ziria. She was different from anyone he had ever met. This place, it's incredible, James said. Quietly, Ziria smiled and placed her hand on his arm. I'm glad you think so. Welcome to my home, James. This is only the beginning. James stepped carefully into the hollow of the great tree, his eyes widening as he took in the sight before him. The inside of the tree was like nothing he had ever imagined. It was not dark or damp, as he had expected from a giant tree. Instead, the space was warm, with glowing vines hanging from the ceiling like chandeliers, casting soft light over everything. The walls of the tree seemed to pulse with life, and the air was thick with the smell of flowers and fresh earth. Ziria led him. Further in, her steps light and graceful. She gestured to a large circular area at the center of the space. There several other aliens were gathered, tall beings with the same shimmering skin and bright eyes as Ziria. They sat on cushions made of some soft, plant-based material, speaking in low voices that echoed through the hollow in a melody that felt both calming and mysterious. This is where we meet, Ziria explained as she led James to a nearby cushion. We gather here to share knowledge, to learn from each other, and to connect with the land. It is a tradition that has been passed down for generations. James nodded as he sat down, feeling a bit out of place but also curious. The others in the room watched him closely, their eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and calm interest. Ziria's presence seemed to put him at ease, though. He knew he could trust her. A few of the others rose from their cushions and approached him. They introduced themselves, their voices gentle but firm. Each of them spoke a little of their culture, and James listened intently, fascinated by their words. He learned that their people valued peace above all else, and their lives were devoted to maintaining balance with the planet. They used their advanced knowledge not to conquer or dominate, but to protect and preserve. One of them, a taller woman with dark blue skin, spoke of the ancient rituals that connected their people to the land. She explained that their ancestors had learned how to communicate with the natural world, sensing the rhythms of the earth itself, its pulse, and its needs. These rituals, passed down through the ages, helped them maintain harmony between their people and the world around them. The land speaks to us, she said softly. We listen, and we understand what it needs to thrive. James listened, trying to take it all in. The idea of living in such harmony with the earth was a foreign one to him. Back home, humanity had often taken more than it gave, using resources, without thinking of the future. But here, these aliens lived in a way that made him rethink everything he had ever known about balance. How do you do it? James asked, his voice filled with wonder. How do you maintain this balance? Ziria smiled and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. It is not easy, she said, but we learn, we listen, we respect the land, and in return, it provides. For us, James felt a strange sense of peace settle over him as he heard her words. It was as if the weight of his own world's struggles faded away, replaced by a simple, beautiful truth. There was so much humanity could learn from this place, as the conversation continued. One of the men with silver skin, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly stood up and motioned for James to follow him. Without a word, he led James toward a corner of the room where a large glowing stone sat. It looked like a crystal, but its surface rippled with colors, shifting in patterns that reminded James of the stars. The man placed a hand on the stone, and it lit up brighter, sending a gentle hum through the air. This is the heart of our home, the man said. It is a symbol of our connection to the earth. It shows us the health of the land and the balance of nature. When the earth is in trouble, the stone tells us. James moved closer, reaching out to touch the stone. His fingers brushed the surface. He felt a soft pulse beneath his skin, like the beat of a distant drum. The colors shifted again, and for a moment he could see the world outside the tree. As though the stone were showing him the flow of life through the planets. Veins, the plants, the rivers, the animals all seemed connected in a beautiful web of life. "It's incredible," James whispered, amazed by the experience. "How does it work?" Ziria joined them, her face serious now. "It is not magic," she explained. "It is knowledge passed down through the generations. We have learned how to listen to the planet's energy, how to understand its needs. This stone is a reminder that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves." James nodded slowly, trying to understand. "I'd always thought of technology as something that could fix problems, but here, it seemed that the answers lay not in machines, but in harmony with the world around them." It was a lesson that felt both humbling and enlightening. As the conversation continued, James grew more and more fascinated by the customs of Ziria's people. He learned about their connection to the stars and their belief that all life was linked not just on their planet, but throughout the entire galaxy. They believed that each species, no matter how different, had something to contribute to the greater whole. Ziria spoke of their history, of the time when their people had been divided, fighting amongst themselves over resources, but they had learned from their mistakes, finding peace only when they embraced the idea that true strength came from unity, not power. It was a powerful message, and one that James could feel deep in his soul. As the evening wore on, the room became filled with laughter and conversation. The others spoke of their dreams, their hopes, and their fears. James felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. These aliens, so different from him, were not so different after all. They were people with hopes and dreams, struggles, and triumphs. Ziria sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his. She looked at him with a soft smile, as though she understood what he was feeling. "I'm glad you're here, James," she said quietly. "This world is special, but it is not perfect. We have made our mistakes, just like your people. We've learned, and we continue to learn." James squeezed her hand, feeling a deep connection to her and to this world. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said. "I think I'm starting to see the bigger picture." And in that moment he realized that this one day, this her. Ziria turned and smiled, her eyes bright with the same warmth they had held the night before. "Good morning, James. I hope you slept well." "I did, thank you, James," replied. "It's peaceful here. I don't think I've ever felt this relaxed." Ziria's smile grew wider.
No.
"That's the way it should be. Here we live without the pressure and noise of the outside world. It's the way we were meant to live." James couldn't help but feel a little envious. The life on Earth was always so fast-paced, so driven by goals and achievement. Here, it was as if time moved slower, allowing people to truly enjoy the present moment. He felt a deep longing to understand this way of life, to experience it for himself. Just for a little longer, Ziria led him outside, and they walked together through the forest, the soft ground beneath their feet squishing slightly with each step. The air was crisp, and the scent of fresh earth filled his senses. They came upon a wide meadow, the grass tall and green, dotted with flowers that bloomed in every shade of color imaginable. "This is where we connect with the earth," Ziria said, her voice calm and reverent. "The land speaks to us here. We listen, and in return, we are given wisdom." James looked around, feeling a sense of awe. The meadow was alive, with movement. Small creatures darted among the tall grasses, and the distant sound of birds filled the air. The whole place felt perfect, as though it was in perfect harmony. Ziria crouched down and motioned for James to do the same. "Close your eyes and listen," she said. "Feel the land. Let it speak to you." James hesitated, but then followed. Her led. He closed his eyes and knelt on the soft grass, letting his senses take over. For a moment, all he could hear was the rustling of leaves and the wind passing through the trees. He felt the earth beneath him cool and firm, and a strange sense of calm washed over him. It was as if the land was alive, breathing with him. Ziria's voice broke through the silence, soft and steady. "Do you feel it? The land's heartbeat?" James nodded slowly, his mind racing. "I think I do," he said, amazed at the experience. It was as if the planet itself had a rhythm, and he was a part of it, even if only for a moment. This is how we stay in balance, Syria continued. We don't take from the earth without giving back. We don't take more than we need. Is the way my people have always lived. James took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He had never thought about the earth in such a way before. On Earth, people took what they could, consumed as much as they wanted, and only thought about the consequences when it was too late. But here, on this alien world, everything was different. Everything was connected, and there was a deep respect for the balance of nature. I think I understand, James said quietly, his mind turning over the lessons he was learning. It's not about taking. It's about living with the land, respecting it. Syria smiled, her eyes reflecting the peace around them. Exactly. It's not about dominance. It's about respect. And in return, the earth gives us strength. They stayed in the meadow for hours, talking, listening, and simply being. James felt a deep connection to the world around him, a connection that he hadn't realized he was missing. He felt more alive than he had in years, as though he had been awakened to something greater than himself. Later, they returned to the hollow of the tree where Syria's people were preparing a meal. The food was simple fruits, vegetables, and grains, but it was unlike anything James had ever tasted. Each bite was full of flavor, fresh and vibrant. As they ate, Syria told him more about her people's customs and traditions, their way of life, and their understanding of the universe. James listened intently, fascinated by everything she had to say. He had never met anyone like her before, someone who viewed the world so differently but with such wisdom. She wasn't just a visitor from another planet. She was a teacher, showing him a way of life he had never imagined. As the day came to an end, Syria took James outside again, and, together, they watched the stars begin to appear in the sky. The planet's twin moons rose slowly, casting a soft light over the land. The stars twinkled brightly above, and for the first time, James felt as though he was part of something much bigger than himself. "This is where I feel at home," Syria said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Among the stars, the land, and the people I love." James looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He had come to this world as a stranger, unsure of what he would find. But now, as he stood beside Syria, he realized that he had found something he had been searching for all his life, a sense of connection, a sense of belonging. "I'm glad I came," James said quietly. Syria smiled and took his hand. "I'm glad you did too, James. This world, this way of life, it's something worth protecting. I'm glad you see that now." And for a moment, as they stood together under the stars, James realized that this day, this one day, had changed him. Forever the next day, James woke up with a feeling of peace that he couldn't explain. Every moment he spent in this strange world seemed to wrap him in a sense of calm. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting soft golden rays over the horizon. Syria was already up, standing near the tree, watching the morning unfold in quiet contemplation. He admired her for her calmness, a quality he had never known before, but felt drawn to deeply. James stretched and walked over to her, his feet brushed. Syria nodded, her expression growing more serious. "Yes, something that I've been thinking about for a while now." They stood in silence for a moment, the air cool and crisp, as if the world itself was waiting for her to speak. Syria's usual calm demeanor seemed to shift slightly, her words heavier than usual. James felt a sudden tightness in his chest. Wondering what she was about to see, Syria took a step closer to him. Her eyes filled with a mix of emotions that James couldn't quite place. "You see, James, I didn't invite you here just because. I wanted to show you my world. There's more to it than that." James looked at her, trying to understand. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low, unsure of where the conversation was going. Syria took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "When I first saw you, I felt something different. You were not like the others I've met. You have a sincerity, a vulnerability, and yet you carry a strength that I could sense. You didn't come here with any expectations, no hidden agenda. Came to learn, to understand. And I saw that." James was silent for a moment, processing her words. He had never seen himself that way, but hearing her describe him like that made him feel as though something deep inside him had been recognized. "I've been watching you for a long time," Ziria continued, her voice softer now. "Not just since you arrived, but long before that. I knew you would come, James. I knew because your people's arrival on this world was not just by chance. You are part of something bigger. You have a role to play, and I believe that role is connected to the future of this planet." James felt a chill run down his spine. "You knew I was coming?" he asked, his voice full of wonder and disbelief. Ziria nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "Yes, I've been watching the humans for years, trying to understand you all. You are so different from us in many ways, but you also share something with us, something that could either save or destroy us." James felt a mix of emotions. He had always known humanity's future would depend on how they interacted with other species. But hearing Ziria's words made it feel more real, more urgent. "But why me?" James asked, feeling overwhelmed. "Why invite me here to your world and share all this with me?" Ziria's gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him. "Because, James, I believe you can make a difference. I saw your heart. I saw that you truly wanted to understand. And in doing so, you've connected with something in this world. It's the same connection that I feel every day. The connection between all living things." James's heart raced. This wasn't just about a peaceful visit to another planet. It was more to it. Ziria was asking him to become part of something much bigger than himself. "I don't know what I can do," James said, his voice thick with uncertainty. "I'm just one person. I don't even fully understand everything I've seen here." Ziria placed a hand on his arm, grounding him in the moment. "That's all any of us can do, James. Take one step at a time. You may not have all the answers, but the willingness to learn, to listen, and to connect those are the things that matter most." James looked into her eyes, realizing how much he had changed since coming to this world. He had arrived unsure, expecting just another mission, another task to complete. But now he understood that this place, this journey, was more than just an assignment. It was a chance to grow, to become something better. "I never imagined anything like this," James admitted, his voice soft but full of sincerity. "I thought I was just here to observe, to document, to report back. But now, I feel like I'm part of something I don't fully understand yet." Ziria smiled, her expression gentle. "That's the first step, James. Understanding will come, but only if you're open to it. We all have a part to play in the future of this planet, and perhaps in the future of the galaxy." James nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. It was as though he had been given a glimpse into something much larger than himself, a purpose that reached beyond the small world he had known. "I don't know where this journey will take me," James said, "but I'm willing to see it through. I want to learn to be a part of this." Ziria's smile widened, and she reached for his hand. "Then let's walk this path together, James. You have much to offer, even if you don't yet see it." They stood together, hand in hand, looking out over the vast landscape of the alien world. The sun was higher now, casting its golden light over everything. James could feel the weight of the responsibility ahead of him, but he also felt a sense of peace. He wasn't alone in this journey. He had Ziria, and he had the chance to be part of something greater than he had ever imagined. And for the first time in his life, James felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. The following days felt like a dream to James. Everything around him seemed so vibrant and full of life, and yet there was a quiet undercurrent of sadness that he couldn't shake. The time he had spent on this alien world had been more meaningful than anything he had experienced in his life. But as much as he had grown to love this place, James knew that he would have to leave soon. He had come as part of a diplomatic mission, and the Earth representatives would soon be expecting his return. Ziria could see it in his eyes. She had been watching him closely, aware that he was struggling with the inevitable end of this incredible journey. She had been kind, patient, and understanding. But she knew that the time had come for the two of them to face the truth. One evening, as they stood near the edge of a glowing river, Ziria spoke softly. "You're leaving soon, aren't you?" "James, James looked down at the water, its surface shimmering in the light of the two moons above them. The sound of the river's gentle flow was calming, but his heart felt heavy. He knew this conversation was coming, but hearing it from her lips made it all the more real. "I have to," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've learned so much here, Ziria. More than I ever imagined I would, but I can't. Stay. I've got a life back on Earth, and I have a responsibility there." Ziria didn't say anything for a moment, her gaze fixed on the river, as if contemplating something deeply. When she finally spoke, her words were gentle yet firm. "I understand, James. I've known this moment would come, but that doesn't make it easier." James turned to face her, his heart aching. "I don't want to leave. I don't want this to be the end of what we've shared." Ziria smiled softly, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Sometimes we have to let go, even when we don't want to. This world, this moment, it was a gift, and it will always be with you, no matter where you go." James swallowed, trying to hold back the emotions that were bubbling up inside him. He had never expected to form such a bond with someone. From another world, someone so different, yet so similar in so many ways. Ziria had shown him a new perspective on life, on balance, on the way humans and the world could live in harmony. It felt like a dream he didn't want to wake from, but the reality was that he couldn't stay forever. He had his duty. He had his people. He had to return and fulfill the mission he had set out to complete. Earth still needed answers, and humanity's future depended on the choices they made now. "I wish I could stay," James said quietly. "I wish I could live in a world like this, where everything feels so peaceful, so connected. But I have to go back. I have to make sure that the people I left behind can understand what I've learned here." Ziria's smile deepened, and she gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know you will, James. I can see it in you. You will take what you've learned here, and you will help your world understand. You'll carry this knowledge with you, and it will change the way you see everything." James looked at her, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, Ziria. Thank you for everything. I don't know if I can ever repay you for what you've given me." "You already have," she replied, her voice soft but full of meaning. "Just by being open, by learning, and by seeing things through our eyes, that's enough." James felt a warmth spread through him as Ziria spoke. He had never felt so understood, so accepted by anyone before. Their connection, though brief, had been powerful, and it had changed him in ways he couldn't even fully explain. As much as he wanted to stay, he knew deep down that this was not just a goodbye, was a stepping stone. This was the beginning of something much bigger than himself. The days passed quickly after that conversation, and soon it was time for James to prepare for his departure. Ziria and the others in the village had made it clear that they would miss him, but they understood why he had to go. The farewell was bittersweet, filled with warmth, but also sadness. On his last evening, as he stood with Ziria beneath the twin moons, she placed a hand on his arm, holding him for a moment longer than usual. "Remember, James," she said softly, "this world will always be here for you. If you ever need to come back, you're welcome. No matter what happens, you'll always have a place here." James nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I won't forget," he said quietly. "I promise." As he boarded the ship that would take him back to Earth, James looked out the window one last time at the glowing world below. He would carry the memories of this place with him forever, the peaceful rivers, the strange, beautiful landscape, and the people who had welcomed him with open arms. He would never forget Ziria, the alien girl who had shown him a new way to see the world. But even as the ship rose into the sky and the planet became smaller in the distance, James felt something stirring inside him. It wasn't just sadness or longing. It was hope. The hope that one day humanity could learn to live in harmony with the world, just as Ziria's people had. It was a hope that he would carry with him, that he would work toward with every step. He took as the ship disappeared into the stars. James knew that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. He had been changed by this experience, and now it was up to him to share that change with the world. James sat quietly in the cockpit of the ship, gazing out at the vastness of space. The stars outside seemed to stretch endlessly, each one a reminder of how small and insignificant his own world sometimes felt. He had come so far, traveled to a distant alien planet, and experienced something that most people would never understand. But now, as the ship hummed quietly beneath him, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving a part of himself behind. Ziria's face flashed in his mind, her gentle smile, her calm voice, and the way she had made him see the world through a different lens. He thought about the lessons she had taught him, the peace she had shown him, and how his view of humanity and Earth had changed in just a few short days. The connection they shared felt like a dream, something so real and meaningful, but also fleeting. The ship's sensors beeped, and James snapped out of his thoughts. They were approaching Earth's atmosphere, and the familiar pull of gravity was beginning to make itself known. He sighed, trying to focus on the mission ahead, but it was hard. His heart felt heavy, and his mind kept drifting back to the alien world he had left behind. Soon, the ship was breaking through the atmosphere, the blue and green orb of Earth growing larger in the viewport. It was a beautiful sight, but it didn't feel the same. Earth had always been home, but now it felt like a place he was supposed to leave behind. A place that had not yet understood the lessons he had learned on Ziria's world. The mission, the duty, the work that needed to be done. It all seemed so small now. James had spent most of his life focused on the details, the tasks, the deadlines. But now, after everything he had experienced, he realized there was so much more to life than just completing missions. It was about connection, about understanding, about balance. He took a deep breath and leaned back in his seat, trying to clear his mind. He wasn't sure what would come next. He didn't know how to make the lessons he had learned on that alien world fit into his life back on Earth, but he knew he had to try. The ship's AI voice broke through his thoughts. Approaching. Destination. Please prepare for landing. James nodded and began to adjust the ship's controls. His fingers moved mechanically, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about Ziria and her people. He thought about the quiet peace of her world, the way everything seemed to work together in harmony. He thought about the moments they had shared, sitting beneath the stars, talking about life and the future. He had promised Ziria that he would carry the lessons with him, that he would do everything he could to make a difference on Earth. But how could he do that? How could he bring the peaceful ways of Ziria's people to a world so divided, so focused on power and resources? James didn't have the answers, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't forget what he had learned, couldn't go back to the way things were. The world he had left behind wasn't perfect, but he now saw the possibility of change. And that was something worth fighting for. The ship touched down softly, and the hatch opened with a gentle hiss. James took one last look out at the stars, then stepped out onto the familiar ground of Earth. The air was thick with the sounds of city life, the honking cars, the chatter of people, the hum of technology. It was a world he knew, a world he had always known. But now, it felt different. He stood there for a moment, taking it all in, trying to find a way to make sense of the strange mixture of feelings inside him. He was home, but he wasn't the same person who had left. The person who had returned was someone changed, someone who saw the world not just for what it was, but for what it could be. As he made his way through the busy streets, James couldn't help but think back to Ziria. He remembered her words, her quiet wisdom. She had told him that the world was connected, that every action had consequences, and that it was up to each person to do their part in maintaining balance. James had learned that the most powerful thing one could do was listen to the world, to others, and to oneself. There was no quick fix, no easy solution, but there was hope. And hope, he realized, was a powerful thing. It could change the way people saw the world. It could change the way they treated the planet and each other. He took out his communicator and sent a message to the Earth delegation, explaining his experience. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew he had to speak up, to share the lessons he had learned. He wanted humanity to understand that there was more to life than just survival. There was a way to live in harmony, to respect the world, to respect each other. As the days went on, James worked tirelessly, trying to connect the wisdom he had gained with the world he had returned to. It wasn't easy. People were skeptical, caught up in their own ways of thinking. But James didn't give up. He remembered the peaceful world he had visited, the way Xeria's people lived. And he knew that change was possible, even if it took time. And though Xeria was far away, James carried her memory with him. The lessons she had taught him, the peace she had shared with him, he knew he would never forget her. The connection they had shared would remain in his heart forever, a reminder of the beauty that existed in the universe and the hope that one day humanity would find its way. As he looked out at the stars that night, James smiled. The universe was vast, and there was so much more to discover. But for now, he had the hope that he could make a difference. And that hope, he realized, was enough to guide him forward.